ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करम्। ओम योगसन्न्यस्तकर्माणम् ज्ञानसञ्छिन्नसंशयम् आत्मवन्तन्न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनंजय. So jnana sanchana samshayam. Here jnana is not knowledge the way it is normally understood, unless you say knowledge is not the usual thing, it is something special. So you have to say it particularly because we are looking at darshana, atmaikatva darshana. You see, you have to discover that all existence is myself. That is the discovery. Now you cannot discover it by hearting texts and other things. You have to discover it by watching your innermost self. And so that intelligence which is everywhere, which is the Brahman, that is what we are talking. Now, that intelligence, is it not the knowledge? No. Intelligence is not the knowledge. I tell you, if you could read all the books in the world, it would not give you intelligence. Intelligence is different. Now, knowledge, we have acknowledged its place and its usefulness. We have not dismissed it. And I also said you should be able to make a discrimination between intelligence and knowledge. Intelligence is something very subtle. Knowledge is additive and accumulative. That is how the knowledge operates. Knowledge has an anchorage, like the sutras of Panini. So they are anchored to a shastra called Vyakaranam, to a rishi called Panini, etc. Whereas intelligence has no anchorage. It is all by itself. It has no anchorage. It is not connected to something. It is not attached to something. It comes into being when you understand the total process of the mind. Your mind. When you watch your mind and understand the total process of the mind, how your mind is functioning, the total movement of your consciousness, you have to watch and understand. This is Adhyatma Vidya. This is the Vidya. When it suppose if it is chemistry, then the intelligence comes when you understand the total process of the reaction, not according to some book, because something may be happening which is not there in the book. And when you understand the total process of the reaction, then when you watch, now you watch it. And then intelligence comes, and then discovery comes. Now you have to discover yourself, your true self you have to discover. Therefore, you encounter, when you look at yourself, you encounter the body. And then more important than body, you encounter the mind. And that mind, total process of that mind, you have to discover. You see, not the your mind it is. You have to watch and understand your mind. Not the mind according to some philosopher, like what Patanjali told about the mind. You see, a person was expert in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but he was fighting with his spouse. What does it show? He knows all about the mind as told by Patanjali. Patanjali says a lot about the mind. He knows all that. That is the accumulated knowledge. But he doesn't know his own mind. For example, his own mind is conflict-ridden. and he doesn't know it. That's why he doesn't have any command over his mind. If you know it, you command it. That is how you command. When it comes to the mind, it is the knowing of the mind that helps you command the mind. So he knows the mind according to Patanjali, but he doesn't know the mind as it moves in himself. You see the dichotomy there? Or we know the Atma according to the teacher. The teacher says something about Atma and you know all that. But you don't know your own Atma. Don't you see that? Therefore, you have to know the mind process means your own mind. Your own mind you have to know. No, I have to know the entire Brahmanda, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, I have to know. You know what? Your mind is all. Your mind is the entire humanity, you know that? Your mind contains the entire evolutionary history of the mankind. Your mind. Your mind is the entire humanity. Your mind is what it is because of the entire humanity. First understand your mind. The one who understands the mind process of his own mind knows all about the humanity. That is how the human mind works. Like that he knows. And therefore, when you understand your mind, the mind process completely, when you understand, the intelligence comes to the fore and it will help you to know yourself. You need not study a single book, I tell you. You need not study a single book because the mind contains the whole knowledge of the past. Your mind, evolutionary mind it is. It contains the whole knowledge of the past. That's why some people find it very difficult to appreciate when an illiterate person has the wisdom which the scholars don't have. They find it difficult. For example, a Ramana Maharshi and a Nisargadatta Maharaj, when they are self-realized, some people find it difficult. How can they be self-realized? Now they have to explain how they became self-realized. You have to find an explanation, or you have to deny. You have to say they don't know the self. All people made up. Like that you have to deny, dismiss. Or if you are not willing to dismiss for whatever reason, because many people seem to believe that they know the self, they are the jnanis. Many people seem to believe that, particularly people outside India, they believe it. They are very sure of it, that Ramana Maharshi knows the truth, Nisargadatta Maharaj knows the truth. They know all of it. And they are the jnanis, they are the wise people. We are not willing to accept that because we have a conclusion about it. Did they study Tatmabodha onwards in like a semester way? Did they study? It doesn't seem to so. Did they study Chatussutri to cap it up all? No. Then how can they be jnanis? It's so very tough to accept them as jnanis. No, we have to accept. We are obliged to accept. Then we bring out some explanation. Maybe in the last birth they had it. So, you are rather trying to give vent to your own conditioning rather than trying to understand a jnani. This is how it happens. I am sorry to say a few things very openly. Therefore, to know the self, yourself, the true self, you may take the help of a book by all means, that is what we are doing. You may take the help of a preceptor also. By all means you can do that. They can only provide some preparation. It is like purchasing a flight ticket and presenting yourself there at the right time and get hold of a boarding pass. It is something like that. But just because I have boarding pass to Bombay in my hand, that doesn't mean I am in Bombay. And the boarding pass will not take me to Bombay. You know the whole thing. Therefore, you have to study your mind. When you understand your mind, you don't have to study a single book, because the mind contains the whole knowledge of the past. The intelligence comes into being when you understand yourself. That is all you have to do. This is Atma Darshana. That is what Shankara is saying. When you understand yourself, the intelligence comes to the fore. That is how it happens. And you can understand yourself only when you watch yourself, when you look at yourself. And I want to add one more thing. You have to listen to what I say with an open mind, not only open mind, with a sensitive mind. The mind sensitive and receptive. You have to understand with that kind of a mind. Very difficult to come across such a mind. Sometimes I get a question through email or whatever. I get a question, and I honestly answer it. And I take some time to answer. I read the question, understand it, and try to understand what is bugging the other person's mind that he came up with this kind of a question. What is troubling the other person's mind? I try to understand, and I take my time and answer it. And I notice I get back the response immediately, like you throw a ball, it comes back to you. When I give an answer, the person doesn't even receive the answer. He is not receptive at all. It is like the ball hits the wall and comes back. And so I say something, he comes back with a question which starts with a but. But means already he rejected my answer. He did not give any thought to the answer given by me. He already put it aside. But so there is no receptivity in the person. I notice that. And therefore I find it very hard to answer the question. Therefore you should listen with some sensitivity, receptivity, and I will also call it with a mind which is pliable. Do you have a mind which is pliable? You know, pliable? If it is a rigid mind, what I say will not have any use. It must be pliable. Now, having given that build-up, now I am saying you understand yourself only in relation to the other. Like Atma Asangaha. Let us take an example. You have to this is a discovery. This is not reciting poems or paragraphs or verses. You have to discover Atma Asangaha. Asango Hyayam Purushaha. You see how easily I quote from the scriptures. It is not difficult for me to quote from the scriptures. I can quote paragraphs verbatim. Atma Hyayam Asango Hyayam Purushaha. This Atma is Asanga, means unattached. You have to discover that. And you have to know. I know that I am Asanga. How will I know? How will I know that I am Asanga? I look at myself in relation with the other. Like there are things around me which I am using. And in my relation with those things, I know that I am Asanga. Yeah, I am Asanga. Like I am using a pen. Some kid asked me, Swami, give me that pen. I put it in his hand. Immediately I put it. I know I am not attached. I am Asanga. Similarly, other things. A car. Am I Asanga? In relation with the car? No. So you will know. Therefore, you know yourself only in relation to other things. Other things or people etc. Suppose Dvaita Advaita is there. How do you relate to Ishvara? How do you relate? The word Ishvara is known to you. It's only a name. It's only a word. And word is not the thing. Whatever it is, that Ishvara, what is your relation with Ishvara? What is your relation? Is it Dvaita or Advaita? The moment I say Ishvara, instinctively, how do you connect? Connect as the other, or connect something deep within you, or connect as your innermost self. How do you connect? That shows you, that tells you your understanding of Atma. Suppose instinctively you connect as the other out there. That is how you connect. In spite of your reading books and all that, you are a Dvaiti. You see, there was a conference in which Dvaita scholars and Advaita scholars took part in Tirupati. I was also there. And they presented their thesis, we presented our thesis, there was back and forth discussions, this, that. At the end of it, all of us got covers, dakshinas, and we went our ways. We are all concerned whether we can catch the train or not. We are pakka samsaris by the time conference is over. The conference is about Dvaita and Advaita. When the conference is over, Dvaiti is not Advaita, Advaiti is not Advaiti, we are samsara people. Therefore, you have to examine yourself in relation to things, the things around you, physical things. What is your relationship with them? That tells you whether you have discovered Atma or not. What is your relationship with people? With friends, foes, with adversaries? How are you relating? That tells you whether you have understood Atma or not. And then how do you relate to this thing called Ishvara? Ishvara is only an idea. The word Ishvara, it is the word. And then it generates an idea. The word, the moment you hear, it creates an idea. Or Ishvara is some gentleman stands before you. It is not so, right? Some idea. No, sometimes Ishvara appears to me. Where? In dream. That is idea only. In dream, everything is a thought only, nothing else. Mind created. Therefore, the moment you listen, you hear the word Ishvara, the word nama, associated with a form, with an idea, and then you examine how are you connecting with that. With that, how are you connecting? So that tells you your understanding of Atma. What I am describing at some length to tell you that this is not the knowledge acquired by studying the books. It is something more than that. So, that intelligence, that is intelligence. I know these things. You see, if you read Tattva Bodha, you see a lot of knowledge there. If you read Bhaja Govindam, you see a lot of intelligence there. You know that. I hope you are able to. I am giving you some of the best examples possible. I am doing an exercise like somebody is working on a machine for half an hour, sweating all over like that. I am doing exercise and giving you examples. So, do you see the difference between Tattva Bodha and Bhaja Govindam? Both are books only. Though both are books, there is a tremendous difference between the two. Tattva Bodha is additive or accumulative knowledge book, conceptual. Whereas Bhajagovindam is pure experience speaking. The way the poet feels and thinks, the way he feels and thinks, or the way he thinks and feels, that is given vent, that is given an expression. And that is Bhajagovindam. Don't you see the difference between the two? Bhajagovindam is a book of intelligence. Intelligence it is. Book is secondary. It is intelligence. Whereas Tattvabodha is a conceptual collection of information. Therefore, that is the intelligence. Also, I tell you, intelligence, can you acquire it from the outside? Suppose intellect you can acquire, but intelligence, can you acquire it from outside? You cannot acquire it from outside. You see, a professor and a student are doing research. He is guiding the research and this student is doing the research. If the research is already with the professor, then he has to dictate and this man writes and submits the thesis. It is not with the professor ready-made formula. That is a semester education. In the semester, ready-made formulae are taught and learnt and exam is written and he passes the semester. But in research it is not like that. It is not a ready-made formula for the professor. It is not a ready-made formula for the student. Both help each other in the inquiry, in the investigation, and then it's a discovery for both. It's a discovery for both. We were looking at a spectrum. There is a thing called a spectrum. And multiple spikes are there. And we could account for all these spikes. This is this spike, this is spike, this is spike, this spike. Like that I could account for all these spikes. Every spike is accounted for. I have all the knowledge. Every spike is accounted. And the professor is watching. He is watching what I am saying. The spikes and the account I am giving also he is watching. He pointed out a spike, in fact a couple spikes which are not accounted for. He asked, what about those two? I looked at them. Maybe they are noise. He said, no, they are not noise. Noise is clearly visible. You can distinguish noise. It is not, noise. It is not noise. They are spikes. No, they are not significant. True, they are not significant. But they are spikes. You know what? The spikes which I have pointed out, they all correspond to a known molecule. And those two spikes which the other gentleman, the guide, pointed out, they correspond to a new molecule. And therefore, take out this molecule and focus on those two spikes. We pulled out a new molecule and a paper in a research publication. That is knowledge, this is intelligence. You see the difference? This is a discovery. And why did not I do that discovery? Why the professor did it? Because my knowledge is coming in the way of the discovery, whereas he has the intelligence which is not hindered by knowledge. He too knows what I know. In fact, he knows more than what I know. The knowledge is not a hindrance for him. Therefore, intelligence was operating. For me, knowledge was a hindrance. Therefore, intelligence was suppressed. Think about these things. Atma Jnanam, I am trying to give a new perspective to you. You should all thank me. Instead of saying, hey, what this Swami is saying, why he says this, why he says that. Okay, you want to say that? God bless you, say that also. I don't mind. But if you are sensitive, you should thank me. So, intelligence is not something that you acquire from the other person. Why should I say that? Because you have created in your mind a system in which you are waiting to acquire it. and you have put another person outside and give a very nice name to that person, call him Guru, do all that, which is all fine. And then you revere the Guru very much, you should do that. You do some service also, some meaningful service you should do. Not the service which Guru doesn't want. Oh, I don't want it. No, you should take it. No, I don't want it. No, you should take it. Not that kind of service. Okay? And so, you do all that and you take the cue as much as you should from the Guru. But you understand that intelligence you cannot acquire from outside. Outside has its place. It, you may say, you want to say it prepares you this, that, you say what all you want to say. But at the moment of discovery, the other is not there. The Guru, so-called Guru is not there. The scripture is not there. Even you are not there. You, the person, studying a scripture with a Guru, Shishya, is not there. When Shishya himself is not there, where is the question of a Guru and scripture? So you keep the Shishyahood, scripture, Guru, you keep all of that intact, there is no discovery. When all of it vanishes, there is a discovery. Upadeshadayam vadaha jnate dvaitan na vidyate, Gaudapadacharya. Vadaha means a particular nomenclature. There Bhashyakara made clear what is the nomenclature. Shishyaha, Sikshakaha, Shiksha. That is the nomenclature. The instructor, the instructed, the instruction, etc. This nomenclature is there only for a limited purpose of instruction. Jnate dvaitanna vidyate. In the discovery, in the jnanam, this duality, this division, this variety, this nomenclature doesn't exist. So what does it mean? As long as you hold on to these structures, you are wedded to those structures. Means you are bound by those structures. You are caught in those structures. No discovery can happen to you. You have to rise above all those structures. That's why, no surprise, Shankara says in Dashashloki, na gurur na shishyaha. He dismisses even that structure. And when there is no fear, when all the structures are put aside, means there must be a revolt in you. Not the revolt like these the political revolts where there is a lot of bloodshed. Not that kind of revolt. Or not even the revolt a son who doesn't want to follow the advice of the father revolts. I am not talking of that kind of revolt. Here there must be a revolt against your own mind, which tries to hold you back in beliefs, in structures which the mind created for itself, and in those structures where the mind finds some gratification. You are seeking, all the time you are seeking a gratification of the mind. And the gratification, you know what is gratification? I suppose you know it. The gratification could be very worldly. When you are a very worldly person, the mind is seeking gratification. Or the gratification could be very religious in its structure. Very religious. Means by pursuing a religious structure, you feel very gratified. And as long as the mind is gratifying itself by pursuing either this or that, that mind is not fit for discovery. It has to move out of all these structures. There must be that kind of a revolt in your mind. Means when there is no fear, fear is replaced by a sense of love for the truth. And fear and love, they do not exist in the same heart. They cannot exist. They are not compatible. In a heart where there is fear, in any form, sometimes what you call belief is mostly fear. It is mostly fear. You see, I went to a home for bhiksha back in India. I knocked on the door because the door was closed. But then I see the door. On the door, Ganapati was fixed. The name of the Ganapati is Kannu Dishti Ganapati. Means, is this belief or is this fear? What is it? You tell me. It is fear which has taken the shape of belief. I tell you, the intensity with which you believe shows how much insecure you are. Are you following? So, you see, people, they pay some lip service to Vedanta. Very sad that they don't have the heart for discovery, because they are already caught in multiple ways. One is the samsara, they get caught. My wife, my children, they are caught now. Then they are caught in the welfare of the body, my blood test, my sugar level, my this, my that. They are caught in that. Some numbers, Some numbers will be everywhere, numbers. For somebody it is fasting sugar, for somebody else it is creatinine, for somebody else it is HDL and LDL. Numbers it is. So you are caught in that, in the welfare of the body. Then you are caught in your sorrows and in your fears and in your attachments, the mind. Then you are caught in your beliefs, in your traditions, in your cultures, in your caste, creed, race, religion. You are caught in that. And then you are caught in your political ideologies, Democratic Party, Republican Party, BJP, Congress. You are caught in that. And you are so clever, you want to push Vedanta into this structure. And so you collect some Vedanta also. I am a bit harsh. Please give me that. Can I be? You don't come to any discover anything. For you, Vedanta is one more structure added to this mess. Such an enormous mess is sitting, and you don't want any revolt, you don't want to give up anything. I see people want to take to sannyas, they are not willing to give up anything. They want sannyas. How many structures I will point out? Are you willing to give up that one of those structures? At least this caste thing, will you ready to give it up? No, I want to keep it. I want to become a Brahmana sannyasi. He doesn't want to give up anything. And push sannyasa into it. Push Vedanta into it. Push Atmajnana into it. You will not be able to push anything. There can be no discovery. Are you willing to revolt? So, when there is no fear, there is love. That is where I digressed. Or probably I did not digress. Love and fear do not exist together. A heart which has love for truth cannot entertain fear. That fearlessness, that is the revolt I am talking about. I'm not asking you to go and fight with somebody. That fearlessness, in that heart, discovery can take place. There can be intelligence in that heart. Suppose you ask me, you are talking so much for the last 1 hour 40 minutes, what is intelligence? You see, to ask what is intelligence is like asking what is life. I gave countless examples to tell you what is intelligence, but still, by the time you define intelligence, that becomes intellect. What is life? Suppose I ask you, you ask me what is intelligence. I ask you that jnana is intelligence. Jnana is intelligence. So what is that intelligence? So what is life? You tell me what is life, I will tell you what is intelligence. You see, life is a study, play, work, quarrel, envy, ambition, love, beauty, truth. Everything is life. Is it not so? Everything is life. Life is everything. Is it not? Similarly, intelligence is everything. So, you should have the patience to inquire earnestly and consistently. You should have that patience to make an earnest, consistent inquiry into the self, into the understanding of the self. Understanding of the self is understanding the self in its relation to others, I told you. So that is how intelligence comes into the fore and discovery happens, and you discover. The God that the intellect is pursuing with all its rituals and with its scriptures and with its prayers, etc., that God is myself. That is the discovery. The happiness that the intellect is pursuing in many worldly things, in different ways, that happiness which the intellect is pursuing is no happiness at all. It is myself. That is the discovery. And that discovery happens when there is intelligence. And that intelligence is the jnanam that we are talking about. Jnana sanchinna samshayam. Atmavantam, that is the next word. Atmavantam. That vantam means matup. In English, one having. Atmavantam. Dhanavantam means what? Having money. Gunavantam. Having good qualities. Okay? Rogavantam. Having sickness. Right? So, dukkhavantam. Having sorrow. Atmavantam. Having Atma. That Atma is not Satchidananda Atma. Okay? Satchidananda Atma you cannot have. It is you yourself. The expression is a Sanskrit expression. It means manaha. Atma is manaha. Atma can be body also. Atmendriya mano yuktam. Yuktam is having. Having Atma, Indriya and Manaha. What is Atma now? Body. Body, right? Having Atma here, Manas. So Atmavantam means Manovantam. Having mind. What is this? Manaha everybody has. Who doesn't have mind? Everybody has mind. It is like English usage. It is all the languages have similar usages. It is like English, he has the body. Means what? Everybody has the body. No. He has the body. Means that matup. Has means matup. In Sanskrit, that matup. Having a body. Means what is that? Prashamsarthe matup. Something excellent. That is the meaning, right? He has the body means his body is excellent, strong, healthy. Whereas our body is neither strong nor healthy. He has a strong and healthy body. That's why we say he has a body. Prashamsarthe matup. In the meaning of something great, something excellent. So here, Atmavantam, one who has prashastam manaha, excellent mind. That is what is this excellent mind? So, what is the prashasta of the mind, excellence of the mind? So, I am looking at Bellankonda Ramaraya Kavi, prashastyam pramadabhava eva. Means the mind which is free from the inadvertence. You see, you give water to drink, good water. What is the goodness of the water? What is the good there? Absence of impurities. That is the goodness. Negative. You come to it from the negative side. Or you have some positive side. You add some paneer to that. No, not like that. Good water means negative. Means impure, pure water. Means free from impurities. Similarly, the mind is a good mind. Excellent means good mind. Means free from impurities. What is the impurity that you are talking about? Inadvertence. That is called pramada. So Shankara, apramattam. Apramattam. So having talked a lot about intelligence, now I am talking some useful things about the mind, so that when you make the mind that way, it helps in the flowering of intelligence. The mind has to flower into intelligence. The mind can become a hindrance for the intelligence. I have discussed it adequately. The mind can flower to intelligence. That is the mind. Atmavantam. You see, the secret is, please try these things. They can be useful tips as part of the last first and third Sunday Gita class. Okay, some useful tips. The secret is, now I am done with intelligence, okay? I am done with it. About the mind, so that the mind can flower to intelligence, the secret is to keep the mind always buoyant. You have to keep it buoyant always. Cheerful. You have to keep it. Now, don't ask how, just do it. Okay? It is like some people sit in the sofa whole day. They sit in the sofa. You should not do that. You have to keep yourself buoyant and cheerful. I walked into the office. There my friend asked, Swamiji, why did you come? I just came to see all of you. Really, that is the reason. I don't have a reason to go to the office. You know why I went? I found I was sitting more than 30 minutes. This is not the way to do. So get up from that chair which absorbs you. So give up the chair, get up, and then get up, do what? Go out, do what? I went to the office, checked the mail. I already checked it for a second time, already checked. So I went to the office just to keep the body moving. You have to do that. So that is about the body, which is an example. The point is, so don't ask how to keep the body active. How? There is no how. Get up and walk around. You are not supposed to sit more than 30 minutes in a sofa. In fact, the sofas are the most corrupting things. If we used to have some wooden chairs, nobody wants to sit in it more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Because the wood is... how were the chairs? You know it. They are wooden, all wooden and hard surface. You sit in it. And after 10 minutes you flee, you seek an excuse to get up from the chair. Right? You should be like that. You should not have such a soft cushions and all that. Once you have a soft cushion and a sofa and all that, which takes you in, then you won't get up. First you won't feel like getting up because the sofa takes you in. And then you won't get up. You don't feel like get up, then you won't get up, then you can't get up. That is the curve. You see, many physicians are sitting here. I will tell you an experiment. This is published in a paper, scientific paper. I read it. They have done an experiment. 4 young people, age same. Their physiology is very same. And 2 of them in a hall, they were held there for 6 hours, the experiment. They are the volunteers. 2 of them are free to move within the hall. They can get up, move here and there. 2 of them are made to sit in the chairs. And their legs are tied. They cannot move the legs. Only upper parts they can move. In 1 hour, they take blood from the legs, a little blood, a micro drop, a droplet. The people who are moving, their blood sugar level remained the same. Whereas the people who are sitting cannot move the legs for 1 hour tied. The blood was taken, the blood is already having accumulated sugar. They became diabetic in the legs temporarily. And then they were asked to move around for after half an hour, the diabetes is gone. Now you know. That is about the body. But the point I wanted to make is not the body, it is the mind. In a way, mind and body are interconnected also. Therefore, don't ask how. You keep yourself buoyant and cheerful in the mind. You do that. You hear some news which makes you very depressed, but don't allow the depression to set in. Keep the mind very buoyant and cheerful, not worried, and also not hurried. Keep in mind. Don't make the mind worried and don't make the mind hurried. Means don't try to accomplish too many things at the same time. Do things one after the other. I'll give you a trick. Don't hold 2 things in the hand. Only hold one thing. For example, I want to give key to it, at the same time I want to do this flower. Don't do like that. Take one thing, give key to it and then put it back, then take this and do whatever you want to do. Don't take like this. Don't drink coffee while driving. Finish coffee and then drive. Or finish driving, then drink coffee. Just I am telling you. Okay? So, not worried, not hurried. Then don't allow any fear to weigh you down. Any fear. Don't enter. Kannu Dishti Ganapati. It is fear. And these gurus put fear in your head. Don't allow the gurus to put fear in your head. India is a nation of gurus who preach the religion of the masses and put the sense of fear in the heads of the devotees. Do you agree with me? There may be worthy exceptions, but I am not talking of the exceptions. In the name of religion, people accumulate a lot of fear. Don't do that. Kannu Dishti Ganapati, etc. There is no, Ganapati has nothing to do with the Kannu, nothing to do with Dishti. What are you talking? Ganapati has no other job or what? To mess up your life? You revolt against some of these superstitions. So, don't allow the mind to be weighed down by fear. And don't allow anxiety to take over you. Don't allow that. Don't become anxious. This I am not saying to you, I am saying to myself. Because I tend to become anxious occasionally. Certain things make me anxious. Dollars? No. Dollars don't make me anxious. Buildings? No. Properties? No. Relations? No. Then I am giving the secret of my life before you. My life is anyway open book. Am I anxious of my good name? No. Am I anxious whether they will appreciate what I teach or not? No. Am I anxious that some of them may censure what I teach, what I say? No. The more they censure me, the more I love it. I am not anxious. Then, Swami, what are you anxious of? I am anxious of travel. Travel makes me anxious. In a variety of ways, it makes me anxious. Therefore, coming to America is not something which I am looking forward to. All that glamour is gone long back. It is replaced by anxiety. People ask me back in India, Swamiji, you feel a bit weighed down, what happened? Yeah, in another 3 days my flight is there to Really. And it is the same in the return direction also. Sitting in the ashram taking classes doesn't make me disturbed. But the time I have to go to airport, flight, this and that, makes me anxious. So my request is, don't allow the anxiety to weigh down your mind. When fear or anxiety does take over the mind, you try to be aware of that fear. Be aware. Don't start some prayers and all that. You should not use prayer like a trump card. Suppose I am afraid. I ask you a general question. You answer me. I am afraid. I pray to Hanuman. And after the end of the prayer, my fear is removed or strengthened, you tell me? Huh? You are very clever, I tell you. You don't want to commit. Let us know. He wants to commit, let him commit. Why should we commit? Anyway, I will answer my question. You need not answer. You keep your anxiety yourself. You keep your fear yourself. You keep your superstitions yourself. I am answering. I have the revolt in me to answer. When you pray to get rid of fear, your fear is strengthened. Suppose I am wearing a talisman because I am afraid of an evil spirit. This talisman is the proof of my fear or is the proof of my fearlessness? Huh? Now you have answered, at least now. It is the proof of fear only, not the proof of fearlessness. In which way your prayer is different from the talisman? You pray to God with love, if you have the wisdom in you, not with fear. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hiyataduttamam. Gita. I think you are my beloved sakha, a friend, not beloved, a friend, whom you love. And bhaktaha means the one who beloved. Bhaktaha is beloved. The one who loves is bhaktaha. The one who likes the company is the sakha. That is the way you have to approach God, not Kannu Dishti Ganapati. Therefore, you be aware of the movement of the mind in which so much of inadvertence has taken roots, so much of impurities in the form of fear and anxiety have taken roots. And whenever you feel fatigued, you chant Om, sitting upright, inhaling deeply, and while exhaling, chant Om. When you feel a bit down, Atmavantam, I am explaining some tips. When you feel a bit down, get up, don't sit. Be on the feet. Don't sit in some sofa. Go into the open air. Don't remain within the four walls. Walk in the open air. And walk briskly. Don't walk slowly. Slowly you are walking means the low feeling has taken you over. You want briskly. The brisk, then you breathe deeply. The deep breathing will cheer you up. Go into the open and breathe in and breathe out deeply the cold air. That will cheer you up. And the cold air that hits you in the face, not hitting, that caresses your face, the cold air which caresses your face, it will produce a wonderful effect. And suppose it is night time, not time to go out and all that, then stay in a corner, stand in a corner and open the mouth, take in the air fully through the mouth and exhale through nostrils. Take in the air through the mouth while standing and while bending, without bending the knees. While bending, exhale the air through the nostrils. It will marvelously cheer you up. Only while inhaling, you be conscious about the air going in, and also you see that the air of the whole world, the air of the universe, Vayu, the universal Vayu, universe it is, not limited. The universal Vayu I am taking in. Like that, you feel that way, and then stand up and throw out. Then you bend and throw out the air vigorously. Do that. So, like that. Inhale and bending, throw out through the nostrils. And then walk alone, chanting Om. Feel oneness with all. All existence is myself. That is the meaning of Aham Brahmasmi. And try to rise above petty cares and anxieties. Something will happen. What happens, happens. Try to rise above the petty cares and anxieties. And this is how you can keep the inadvertence, the pramada of the mind away. Atmavantam. You do this much. Na karmane nibaddhananti dhananjaya. Let us say the verse and conclude. Om yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavantanna karmani nibaddhananti dhananjaya. That finishes the 41st verse, and in January, the first Sunday, the 42nd verse will be taken. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam